The Roman Catholics say, and with your spirit. I love that bit. That's good. Third temptation. You notice that there was no if involved anymore. If you are the Son of God. The second temptation, if you are the Son of God. Third temptation, all right, for crying out, you're okay, you're the Son of God. Great. I mean, there's no if anymore. But what he does do is he looks at Jesus and says, okay, takes him up to an exceedingly high mountain and says, basically, these are all yours. I'll give all of them to you. In other words, he appeals to a sense of kingship in Jesus. You are a king. Dun, da, da, da. Wonderful, beautiful. These are all yours. He's tempting Jesus to become a king like all the other kings, what he's doing, who rule over people, not with them or under them. And when I say under them, just think of it this way. If Jesus, and the Word of God is clear, is the cornerstone, the chief cornerstone, there's nothing lower than a cornerstone. That's the whole point. Everything is built on it, from the cornerstone up. That's why when you're looking to the top of the building and looking for Jesus, you won't find him. He's buried over there, under everything. When Ephesians 2 says that the church is built on the foundation, the apostles and the prophets, it's what sometimes causes me a bit of distress when I see the church elevating the apostles and the prophets. They're apostles, they're prophets, they're way up here someplace. I tell you what, if they're way up there someplace, they are not apostles and prophets. You want to find apostles and prophets? Look under your feet, because that's where they usually are. Kingdom is built on them. They're the lowest. Paul says it. We're the lowest of the lowest. That's what apostles and prophets are. People nowadays, in the Western church, they call themselves a prophet. You can fill a stadium of 20,000 people. Who gives a rip? You want a vision? Go to India. You have a vision like you can't believe when you see people starving to death. He's looking at Jesus, and he's trying to get Jesus to believe that he's some other kind of a king than he really is. And he throws the bait at him, basically saying, you will rule over all these kingdoms. Oh man, does that sound sweet or what? I'm not that large, but I'll be in charge, Jesus met all three temptations as a human being like us. That's the whole point. He wasn't given any special dispensation or any special assistance, but his humanity that trusted in his divinity, if you see what I'm saying. So his overcoming the temptations, there's the example for us there. It's a nice way of saying to everybody in this room, and what I did in the wilderness and on the temple and on that exceedingly high mountain, you can do as well. In the divinity of your humanity, the humanity of your divinity, however you want to flip-flop the thing, this guy, this bad angel, you can deal with. The harder thing is dealing with ourselves, if none of us have kind of gotten to that point yet in our lives. The harder issue is dealing with us, with ourselves, and the challenges and the struggles and tension at times, and the confusion at times, all of that stuff. There's a lot to be said about all the temptations. I've been trying to zero in on like one thing, which is what I want to kind of zero in on here tonight, because there's something really major going on with the recommendation, the temptation of the enemy. It's not even so much the ruling over. I said a moment ago, he's trying to tempt him into becoming a king like other kings who rule over people instead of with them or from underneath them kind of thing. In other words, he is tempting the king to become an emperor. We talked once before about the difference between kingdoms and empires. Emperors rule by conquest. They're non-relational. They don't know who's in the countries they rule, and they don't care. They're building empires. They're non-relational. They're just countries that I've defeated, I've beat up, I've killed, I've done what I've had to do to take control of a country, and now I control it. I rule over the people. Every single subject, they are all my subjects now. Not sons, but subjects. Kingdom has a king. A king has a family. A family is the royal family. Kings are not elected. Kings don't come into power by conquest, but by birth. Kings have sons. The sons grow up from princes to be kings. They're entirely different things. A king is among his kingdom. In John, the first chapter, would you read verse 14?
And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we saw his glory. Glory is of the only begotten from the Father, full of grace and truth.
When John says that he was among us, it's huge. What is the king doing among us? John's making a huge statement. Not like the Romans. They were among us, but not with us. Like I said, when we looked at Matthew during Easter time, we talked about this quite a bit. So we won't go back over it again, kingdom. But the whole idea is this. Satan is saying to Jesus, he's tempting him, not so much with all the kingdoms, but the way he's going to go about ruling, which is impersonally. You don't have to know those people. You're on an exceedingly high mountain, and they're way down there. Does that sound sweet, Jesus? Because that's what the kingdoms of the world are like, the empires, if you would. Impersonal rulership is a different way of saying non-relational. And what we're really getting to, but one of the most diabolical thoughts, whether you look at it in terms of everything is connected, and therefore what you're really talking about is crazy, to not be related when you are related. No matter how you cut it, it's an absolutely diabolical thought to suggest you do not need community. You may remember that Satan, before he was Satan, was called Lucifer in Isaiah 14, before the big crash. And when you read Isaiah 14, which we won't read right now, everything is I will. I will. I will. I, me, mine. You know, it's that kind of thing. And he's talking to Jesus, who's in the eternal dance with the Father and the Spirit, who lives in the realm of community, who demonstrates community by virtue of the Trinity, that they are 3 in 1, 1 in 3, however you want to say it. There's already, in the Trinity, there's already community. And it's probably one of the most powerful aspects of what God has shown us, which we still quite haven't got. And the ancients have talked about the dance for eternity. And he's basically saying to Jesus, you can just dance alone like I do. Be an entity unto yourself. Be an island unto yourself. Let's read Matthew 20, verses 25 through 28 to zero in on the kind of king that we're talking about here.
Jesus called them to himself and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and those who are great exercise authority over them. Yet it shall not be so among you, but whosoever desires to become great among you, let him be your servant. And whosoever desires to be first among you, let him be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and give his life a ransom for many.
See, the enemy's talking to the King of Kings, and the King of Kings is the greatest servant of them all. You're trying to entice a king to elevate himself above everybody that he came to serve. There's a serious conflict of interest there. You see, he thinks he's talking to the king, and he is, but this king is a servant. This king understands the nature of a king is to serve. So while we're reading books and taking courses on being kings, the first page ought to start with, who are you currently serving? What system are we serving? And the word service can't be said enough, quite frankly, when it comes to a king, because that's what kings do. Jesus demonstrates what a real king is about. I want to say one more thing. There's tons of names in the New Testament for Jesus. Pick one that comes to mind. Lamb of God, Lord of Lords, my friend, Rabbi, Ancient of Days, Son of Man, Christ, not his last name. Well, some people think that, Jesus Christ, yeah. Emmanuel, the Word. But this one name is used 21 times. Jesus of Nazareth. Even when he appears to Saul in Acts 22 on the road to Damascus. Who are you? Jesus of Nazareth. Stop and think about that one. A great white light. Who are you? Jesus of Nazareth. The point was that he was of someplace on this earth and proud of it. Who are you? Steve of Rochester. I'm not afraid to be identified with the city I was born and raised in. I'm actually of a community. I'm of a place. I'm of a people. I'm of a neighborhood. I'm not just Steve with a name. I'm an of someplace. See, Jesus had no intention of living on a high mountain someplace and not being an of. Jesus was going to be of Nazareth. And he was going to be happy and proud to say that. I believe in community. I believe in communal living. I believe in sharing our lives together. And even when I am being identified, the community that I'm of, he's looking at him, got him on top of an exceedingly high mountain. How high is that? Oh, it's exceedingly high. And Jesus says, nah, this will never work. How am I going to serve the needs of these people up here someplace? What was going to be the next step? We give them a magic wand? We'll just while we're reading books about how decrepit, awful, disgusting, rotten, original sinning piles of cow manure we are, Jesus is like, I don't really see it that way at all. I'm really pleased with what I made. Seriously pleased. I'm going to walk with you, share some food together, meet a lot of needy people in a way that's hard for you to comprehend and understand right now, but that's okay, because I'm of you and you're of me, and that's the way, I like it, Change your circumstances, change your criteria, change your credentials, change your connection, whatever. Here The temptation is to change your commitment. Jesus was committed to us, and he was commissioned from his Father, and he was not commissioned to sit on mountaintops. He was commissioned to get down in the nasty neighborhood where people are really hurting, and there are tough things going on that people are totally confused because there's a lot of religious leaders sitting on mountaintops someplace, totally out of touch. They have bit the bait, hook, line, and sinker, and they are ruling over people. And Jesus says, I'm just not there. That's not the kind of king I am. I'm a servant king, and I've come to serve, not even to be served.